After being asked for literally months to do it, finally we have a tier list for all trials and MK challenges. This is my personal tier list, and I think a lot of the placements might be controversial, but yeah, this is for season 1. Hope you enjoy. I have them in order to where they released, instead of the environment or whatever. But yeah, I'm gonna start off with Snitch. I think Snitch is like A. I don't think Snitch is S. I don't think so. Obviously, I'm ignoring the bugs. Like, obviously, right now there's the shuttle bug and so on and so forth going on. I don't have to tell you that. That's fucking horrible. They need to fix that, and they know that they need to fix that, and they have acknowledged that the bug exists, but they don't know how to fix that yet, so there's that problem. But yeah, that's a thing. But besides that, Snitch is just a solid introduction trial. It is just incredibly solid. It's easy, like easy as in like concept, yet it still feels fine even as a veteran player. The final encounter with Coil is still the most threatening final encounter in the game. Like, there's so many main trials with a final encounter mechanic that are just like Toy Factory, like Poison Medicine, like obviously Orphanage is fucking pathetic, Root Canal is pathetic. Like, this is one of the only main trials with a final encounter that is actually incredibly menacing. Still, obviously if you just run blind or stun or whatever, then obviously not. But you also keep in mind, I'm a guy who does a lot of challenges for trials, so I will obviously also wait a little bit, you know, on like the base difficulty without loadout and whatnot. And I think for that it's fine. I also think it should get bonus points because of the lock people in garage strategy. That's a thing that no other trial currently has. And I think it deserves to be like right here. I don't think it's S because it's, you know, not, oh my god, insane, amazing or whatever. But I think it can comfortably sit here, I think. What do you think? What do you think? I think that's a fair assessment. Like, the only thing that I would say is, you could maybe make the argument, and you can barely see it even. Like, Night Hunter is obviously lacking, even on higher difficulties, he's like lacking. It would have been interesting if, for example, he was in the basement on higher difficulties. But I get why it's the first trial, so they don't want to introduce him there yet. Even on higher difficulties, I get that. That's maybe the one nitpick, but yeah. Cancel Autopsy. I think Cancel Autopsy is fine. It's the good example of a small trial that is, you know, fine. Like, it's fine, it's simple, it's not the greatest though. I think it's just okay. I think it's just middle of the road. Like, I don't think it's terrible, but it isn't great either, in my opinion. It is the speedrun map for multiple people speedruns, which is nice. It's a simple objective. You can utilize multiple stuff here. You can, for example, also use X-rays to find the keys. You can use blind. You can use stun. You can use barricade. Like, that's good too. Like, that's maybe also a thing to consider. If you, for example, can use X-ray rather usefully somewhere, I think that should also be accounted for, because that gives it a little bit more depth. Then again, you can just look at the TVs at the start and be fine. So I like what they have going with higher difficulties where there is Night Hunter in either A or C. I think that is pretty cool. But yeah, other than that, there's not much else to say about this trial, unfortunately. The map is really nice. Like, small, compact, but still, you know, I think satisfying enough. But yeah, I don't think there's much else to add to that. Which, to be fair, I think the reason why I put it around the middle is just because this is just the very definition of, okay, this is okay. This is like okay, you know? I don't have too strong feelings about not Sabo Lockdown, about Cancel Autopsy. I don't have strong feelings about that. That's maybe the main reason why it's in B, and I try to justify it now. But I think it's also cool that you have a little bit of the dynamic in Sector A, where let's say you have the Night Hunter spawn on higher difficulties in A. You have in the darkness is Night Hunter, and in the brightness, if you are quiet, you are completely safe theoretically, because there's only the Screamer, blind guy like the Berserker, and Night Hunter if he goes through some holes because of some blocked shit. I think that is very interesting, maybe true, but at this point I'm grasping straws. Sabo Lockdown. I don't like this map. I used to be like, okay, it's fine, whatever. I don't like this map anymore. I think it already started with Geister last year, which if you don't remember, because maybe there are some console people who have never experienced that and have experienced Geister for the first time this year. But last year Geister was horrendous for grinding. You couldn't even enjoy the event if you wanted to get everything. So what you had to do was to grind out like trials in general. And people caught on to that Sabo Lockdown is the best for speedrunning. And as a community, in Unity, we learned Sabo Lockdown speedrun. And the thing is, you needed to do that like, I don't remember, but it was definitely around 100 times at least in order to get all the cosmetics. It was absolutely horrible. So that's what it already started. And it's also one of the trials that was constantly in past weeklies, because it was like, okay, but we need to satisfy the speedrunners, so just put that in the weekly or whatnot. But there's a reason why it's always called the speedrun festival. The only redeeming thing about it, what I personally find interesting, is that sometimes in C, especially if you're doing a specific challenge, let's say you're doing no loadout or whatever on a higher difficulty, and you have the small guy and coil patrolling, then it has the potential to sometimes be ugly if you're getting unlucky and you have to rotate a little bit. But then that's annoying for speedruns too, because you are done getting a time loss because of pure RNG. But for the most part, you're just rushing through the lockdown sectors. The Berserker 99% of the time literally serves no purpose to start off. Coil patrolling, if you know where you're going, doesn't matter until you reach C anyways. And for the most part, you're rushing through. Either you rush through the outer skirts, which is, you know, that hallway where there is no enemy anyways, or you go through the like the shower area, whatnot, which is the shorter path where you have to deal with a big guy, which sometimes can be a bit of a hassle, but it's not really engaging, I don't think. I mean, a lot of this, why it's probably in D for me, is maybe potentially because I've played it for too long. I won't deny that. Like, that is the trial I've played the most. But again, that was the reason why I explained the like the program Geister thing earlier, because, you know, it's really bad on the route I take. Yeah, but normally you just take a left, and either you go through the door or you jump through the window and then you're done. Like normally I don't even see a point in going through the double door. That's probably what you mean, Bebos, right? Like, I don't see a point in going through the double door because most of the times either the window or the door is available. So there's like no real point. Maybe one thing about Sabotage the Lockdown that's maybe not also interesting still, like one of the redeeming things. The exit can sometimes be ass, which makes it a lot more interesting. Like once you're done with the generator, the exit with like the big guy with the axe and, you know, coil. Like when I experienced that in Ultra for the first time, I was like, holy shit. I did not expect that, because they added that after an update or something. I don't fully remember, but it got added like an update after the official, like, you know, Ultra release. That was interesting, but this map is just, I don't know. To give me like 2 extra seconds. Oh, for speedrunning? Okay, that's fair. But yeah, for normal play, I normally don't... Like, I normally don't care about Berserker, and again, I'm talking from my perspective, and from my perspective, the Berserker is completely cosmetic. And I feel the only reason he is there is because he's also there in Sector A and Cancel Autopsy, and they just wanted to have consistency. That's the only reason, I feel like. Yeah. So yeah, unfortunately, I have to put it down. I don't even know, because at the same time, I don't know if they should even improve it, because I know once they go ahead and do, for example, do the same thing that they did with Fuel Release, where is it, like Fuel Release, if they go ahead and do something like that with Sabotage the Lockdown, speedrunners would just start complaining about that, and no one will be happy. So, yeah, in my opinion, unfortunately, it reached the end right there. How do we feel about Root Canal, chat? How do we feel about Root Canal? I think Root Canal for me is at least solid B. At least. Maybe even higher, but I don't know. A lot of people really like Root Canal, and the more I play it, the more I understand why. Root Canal has some very, very interesting segments. Like the ticket game at the start, you might not even realize it, but the ticket segment at the very beginning is incredibly intense, but still very well balanced. What do you have on higher difficulties? Blind guy, you have to worry about him. 2 small guys patrolling. One like left, one right. And they cross at the diner. The entire segment pretty much almost has no darkness, which is crazy. Like, I find that crazy as a concept, because that used to be the second trial. Not Orphanage. Like, Orphanage right now is, you know, the second trial. Root Canal, when this game came out, was the second trial. And if you put it into that perspective, I think that's crazy. Because where exactly is a dark area in the first segment? I mean, I guess the, hiding crawl space, I suppose. Where you go backstage. And the shit rooms, I suppose. But for the most part, besides some of the game stands, there's not much darkness, unless I'm missing something. And that's actually crazy. And yeah, the ticket game is very interesting. The follow wire is not the most innovative thing ever, but fine, sure. The valves are really fun, I will have to say. And the fact that you can learn skips for them, like Sus, like for example Sus did that, like the lay pipe guide, whatever the fuck. That is really nice. That's a really nice quality to it, I will have to say. Final encounter is trash though, I will have to say. Like the final encounter, like it feels good to outplay it easily by just luring her towards the bright room and just looping around and doing another one cycle. But it does feel a bit cheap to be able to do that effortlessly without a loadout even. It's a bit dumb, in my opinion. Like, I'm not advocating to be like, okay, every single final encounter needs to be incredibly, like, challenging and tricky and whatnot, but final encounter still feels really, the final encounter's just, I don't know. What else is there? Night Hunter and Small Guy downstairs at Pipe is interesting. Goose is upstairs. Interesting distribution, I suppose. Like, in general, the Pipes is probably one of the peak parts of Root Canal, and I think it's pretty well implemented. Because either you follow the pipe if you are, you know, are not familiar yet, but you can then learn patterns eventually, and that is really satisfying, I feel like. And yeah, in general, this map has a lot of quote-unquote skill checks, where if you play this map more and more enough, your knowledge pays off. Same with the games, for example, where you can immediately, without even looking at the map, immediately know, okay, this is there, this is there, this is there, this is there. I can just rush through that, and that is really satisfying. Which, to be fair, I will admit I'm not a Root Canal fanatic. I still have to learn a lot of that stuff myself. Like, I still have to learn the pipe videos, but like the pipe thing, by the way. I still have to learn that. Hey, Spanish Fly, welcome. I'm doing fine right now. Hope you're doing well, too. But yeah. Maybe I should put it up to A. I don't know. Maybe I should put it up to A. For the giant and final in the first section. Actually, good that you mentioned that. Because the first push is actually really tricky, now that you mention it. One thing though, which is very interesting, and I hope that they implement that again at some point, is the water mechanic, which a lot of people don't know. Water actually slows down enemies. And I think a lot of trials, like more trials, should capitalize on that. And that's a really interesting hidden mechanic, which is pretty cool too. And yeah, the one giant and small guy first push, actually that might put it up to A for me. Like, a lot of this stuff is really interesting. I still think Snitch is better, simply because Snitch is more of like the standard whatever. Like, easy to understand, still fun, and the final encounter, I think, elevates Snitch a lot more for me personally, but I think I'm gonna put up Root Canal to A, actually. A hard-throwing, boat-pushing, pipe-laying trial where you grind kids at the end, A sounds good to me. Yeah, I'm gonna put it up in A. I don't think it's gonna be S, though. I know for a lot of people this is S. It's not S for me. And it's also below Kill the Snitch for me, but I've convinced myself. I'm gonna put it in A, I think. Methinks. I'm gonna put it up there. Punish Miscreants. Punish Miscreants are gonna be, spoiler's gonna be around there somewhere. I don't know where exactly. I'm gonna put it in C for now. Maybe I can convince, like, do the same and convince that it is in B, maybe. But I'm not a huge fan of the child escort thing, because that just feels really tedious overall. So in Punish Miscreants you have 4 segments. The barn, where there's the grinder downstairs, and then 3 segments in the carnival, like the first one, then the dark area with the diner, and then the one at the very end. And it just feels like too much backtracking is needed. More than it should be. It is a lot more fine with multiple people, but with solo, it is, yeah, I don't know. It just feels too much backtracking is needed, especially since the map is like one straight line. So you have two options. Either you go ahead and do this awkward thing that I normally do, and you grab like kid, get it to dark, and carry both kids simultaneously. Like get the kid, put it like there, go back, get that kid, put it there, and you know, snail your way like that. Or you get them one by one, and then it feels like a fetch quest. The objective of getting the kids isn't that interesting either. It is good that you have this skill expression thing where you see the kid there and you immediately know where the button is. That is pretty cool and pretty nice and satisfying once you play it a bunch. But the objective itself isn't that interesting. It is not that interesting, and I feel the map shape just makes it incredibly awkward. And also the enemy distribution. I mean, the enemy distribution is fine. You have Night Hunter upstairs, you have small guy patrolling area 1, big guy like patrolling diner, and another small guy patrolling the carnival entrance, and I think that's fine, but not really interesting. And I think that's where it falls flat a little bit, and for that the objective isn't that interesting to me, and the map layout is just not really selling it for me. I'm gonna put it, I think it's C. It's not the worst thing ever, like, don't get me wrong, C is still above D, but yeah, I mentioned Night Hunter in the dark area, I did, yeah, and that's fine. It's just whatever. Like, when this shows up in escalation, I'm just like, okay, fine, we have to go through this, and you shouldn't think that with an MK challenge, in my opinion. Or I shouldn't, this is my list anyways, but no, he's not around diner. The time he's around diner. Hello. Hey Popcat, by the way, thank you for following. Hope you're doing well. You're thinking about Open the Gates. He's not in Punish. In Punish, he's not around the diner. It's in Open the Gates, which if you get to Open the Gates, by the way, is B, maybe even A for me. But we will get that in a second. I just want to finish Punish Miscreants. But yeah, the objective feels tedious rather than anything else. And the map shape is, yeah, I'm just not the biggest fan of it. So yeah, I think it's gonna stay C for me. Anyways, Open the Gates is very cool though. Because the objective in Open the Gates is incredibly easy and simple. But the enemy distribution makes it a lot more interesting. Let me pre-place it there. Maybe it goes up A. I don't know yet. But let me place it on B for now. But yeah. You have 4 sectors again. The same sectors as Punish Miscreants. But they are a lot more interesting. Gooseberry is there all the time now. On your ass. I'm talking higher difficulty, by the way, which I probably forgot to mention, but that's maybe also a criteria. I'm looking at Psychosurgery Ultra, whatever the fuck, when I'm looking at these. In terms of interest. Like, I'm not looking at them on introductory or standard difficulty. That's maybe also something worth pointing out, but yeah. First sector, immediately Night Hunter Gooseberry. Second sector, small guy, Gooseberry, Screamer. Third sector, Screamer, Night Hunter, Gooseberry. Fourth sector, Gooseberry, big guy, Screamer, and Night Hunter also. If you lure Night Hunter accidentally towards the fourth sector, he also chills in the fourth sector intentionally. Like, he normally chills around the, you know, the hidey hole? I don't know behind which game that is, but he chills around that area. Like, he can't see you. He acts more as a berserker then, but he also chills around the fourth sector as well, which is insane. The objective to break the quartz is simple enough to make it not as tedious, but it does make it still very intense enough. And with the enemy distribution, I think it's like a fair and fun MK for the most part. Especially if you get variators like blocked paths or whatever, it can make it incredibly insane. Deadly Prime Acid, like people keep saying Deadly Prime Acid plus this is their crack, and you can immediately tell why. And it's just... yeah, I'm gonna put it up here. I'm gonna put it up here, I think. Methinks. Alright, let's go to Orphanage. Main Orphanage. Oh boy. Probably my favorite fun park MK, honestly. Open the gates? Yeah, I will have to agree with that, I think. Cleanse the Orphans is B. I don't think I'm with you with that. I get the argument about thematically and so on and so forth. But I think... Cleanse the Orphans being the black sheep, I think knocks it down for me. I think it knocks it down for me. You have the frequencies, which you have Gooseberry patrolling, but if you're getting somewhat good with the frequencies, then Gooseberry is gone for the entire trial within like a few minutes, which is not good. Like it is definitely the easiest main trial to take that away like from the get-go. And yeah, the frequencies is fine. There's a skill component to it, but Smash also makes it easier, yeah. Like, the whole frequency part, let me phrase it that way. I don't 100% even know what the enemy distribution and frequency is. That's how fast it normally goes. And that's maybe not a good sign. Like, I know there's a small guy here, there's maybe a big guy there, there's Screamer somewhere, and there's maybe another guy patrolling there, but I don't even know what the distribution is 100%. And that's not good. That's not good. And yeah, this is like the only Gooseberry segment. To take it away, like all main trials follow the same formula right now, except Cleanse the Orphans. You have an introductory enter segment, then you have a segment with the prime asset, then you have a segment without the prime asset, and then you have the final encounter. Orphanage does not follow that pattern, and I can appreciate it for that, but I also think it does it a bit poorly. The film reel segment is fine, I suppose, with the small guy and the big guy. I think it's fine. But it's also not the most engaging main objective as well. Like, it's heavy object plus the rotating doors for the first time, which will eventually lead to the conveyor belt mechanic down the line, which a lot of people hate. And the second half of Orphanage is literally Kill the Snitch copy. Back when there was only Kill the Snitch, Root Canal, and main Orphanage as the main trials, this was a little bit of a spit to my face. Because it was literally just gens and keys. Like literally Kill the Snitch, main trial, copy pasted towards another main trial, and that felt, you know, that felt bad. That felt really bad. Not to mention that the areas are also like, not the greatest either. Like, you have a small guy patrolling in a rather small area with a screamer. That's fine for like the keys, and that's fine, I suppose. And the Night Hunter segment has the potential to be incredibly ugly with a screamer down there as well for the generator. Like, I get that. But it's also not really original. Like, it's literally a Snitch copy-paste. And now for the absolute elephant in the room. The final encounter of this main trial. The prime asset is missing. The prime asset is straight up missing. So, yeah. What do we say about that, chat? What do we say about that, chat? Because this alone, for this alone, I cannot recommend this B. I don't think it's gonna go down D. I don't think it's gonna go down D, because there is some redeeming things about Cleanse the Orphans. Like, spoiler, this is gonna be my least favorite main trial. But I think there's some redeemable stuff, so it's not gonna go down D. But yeah, it also speaks volume, by the way, that when I got it in escalation with Countdown on Ultra for the first time, which I've done it now. By now, I've done this Countdown Ultra a few times in escalation, so I'm used to it. But the very first time I did this Countdown Ultra on escalation, it was the first time I actually felt threatened in Orphanage ever. Where it felt like, oh my god, this could actually be insanely tricky. The first time ever. All the other times I was like, oh, okay. It's Orphanage, it's free. And that doesn't feel great, so yeah. I'm gonna leave it C. I think I proved my point. But yeah. Feed the children. Maybe, possibly. Maybe, possibly, around here? See, this is what I mean. I struggle a little bit to gauge that myself. Hence, I also wanted to do that on stream a little bit. So, I maybe get a little bit influenced and, you know, told, like, a few valid arguments. But I think Feed the Children is middle of the road. I will say I'm getting a bit tired because that is one of the trials alongside Sabotage the Lockdown that the devs just love to put in every single weekly. It's gotten better, but back when they rolled out the weeklies for the first time, these two, Feed the Children and Sabotage the Lockdown, were so often in the weeklies that it started to be annoying. But Feed the Children is just middle of the road, and maybe the gold standard for what a heavy object MK should look like. You have your disposed heavy object here thing in the middle, and you have two sides. You have the chapel side. One downstairs, one upstairs, one small guy patrolling. There used to be another small guy patrolling, but not anymore. And I think that's fine. Maybe there should be another guy patrolling, I don't know. Like, it used to be that there's two guys patrolling there. Nowadays, there's only one. I think it's fine though. And there's Screamer, one upstairs, one downstairs. I think that's fine. I think Berserker around Chapel side is a little bit of a missed opportunity maybe. But unlike Sabo Lockdown, he still comes into play every once in a while. So I think it's fine. Like, especially if you get the RNG where the staircase double door is blocked off. And every once in a while you have to deal with Berserker. It's really interesting, I suppose. But yeah, that side is interesting. And then you have Laundry and Pool. With big guy, small guy patrolling outside. And Night Hunter patrolling Laundry. And I think one Screamer around Laundry, right? Like, I think that is, like, fairly balanced, I think, overall, for highest difficulty. I think that's fair enough as well. Like, it doesn't feel bullshit either. So yeah. It's just middle of the road. And then you have the final gooseberry encounter, which she isn't on the map at all times until the very end, which is whatever. But her and another small guy around the exit makes the final escape somewhat enjoyable. Obviously, if you just have the blind mine and stun, that's easy as pie, but everything is easier as pie with stun and blind, so yeah, it's fine, I think. So middle of the road is, I think, fine. Foster Orphans, I feel the same as Open the Gates. Maybe a little bit worse. But Foster the Orphans gives a similar vibe that Open the Gates does. Funnily enough, to me. It's an objective that's rather simple, but the map is very claustrophobic, and the enemy distribution is actually insane on higher difficulties. So it gives the similar vibe to Open the Gates, and I enjoy that. Like, the enemy distribution is one small guy around pool, Gooseberry patrolling all the way, Night Hunter in laundry, Screamer in laundry, I think, Berserker around playground, big guy around cafeteria, Screamer around cafeteria too. And I think that's it, but it still feels incredibly claustrophobic, especially if you have some blocked doors and so on and so forth. It's incredibly claustrophobic, but the objectives are simple. It's basically the same as Open the Gates, but I feel Open the Gates still feels a little bit more tension. So I find Open the Gates are a little bit more enjoyable than this on higher difficulties. Well, I didn't mean to put it as, but I still think it deserves to be up here as well in A for me, because ever since that one update where we had psychosurgery, and because of that we have increased threat 2 on that map, I low-key dread going towards cafeteria. Because cafeteria, like the cafeteria area, has the potential to be so highly populated. And that's insane. Like, insane as in a challenging good way. That being said, I think what breaks this map a little bit is the potential for RNG to just be weird. Like, sometimes you can get all the frequencies around the laundry side, which feels a lot more like free, and it might feel not satisfying. Then you can get a middle distribution, which is fine, but then you can also get all the frequencies around, like, cafeteria side, which then feels like, holy shit, what the fuck did I run into, you know? Yeah, it is a good change around the thing. Then again, it also feels a lot less... Like, it feels claustrophobic, especially the entire cafeteria area, but it doesn't feel as nearly as claustrophobic as Open the Gates. It does feel... It works better for Open the Gates for me, but... Yeah. Courthouse. I'm gonna put it here. It used to be my favorite main trial because of the objectives. The witness objective is probably still my favorite objective in the entire game, probably. I love styling on them, especially without a loadout. I think it's incredibly fun to do. The acid mechanic I'm also a fan of because it differentiates my no damage challenges from, you know, just any person speedrunning. That's the main reason why I like the acid mechanic. I know a lot of people hate the acid mechanic, but I enjoy it for that very reason. where it's like, you have to be careful to do that. And the puzzle boxes are also really cool and interesting. Like, Courthouse, when that came out, had so many cool, innovative objectives, I have to say. The enemy placements are alright, even though Courthouse was the first map where you really felt, okay, this game at some point needs more enemy types. Let me break it down for you. There's Night Hunter in the library at the very beginning when you have to go to the courtroom. Then there's Night Hunter upstairs alongside a small guy where you get the acid. And then there's Night Hunter when you have to kill the first witness downstairs. Like, when that came out and you put it into perspective, it really feels like, okay, at some point you are... It conveys to me the feeling that enemies are, like, not necessarily overused is maybe the wrong word, but it just feels like a desperation for maybe there should be new enemy type at some point. I don't know. Yeah. But yeah, you have first have the evidence segment. I mean, first you have to get to the courtroom, which was the first introduction to the concept of you don't immediately enter a place, which was amplified by Toy Factory, and I suppose also the dogs a little bit. But you have the library segment with the Screamer and Night Hunter, which is really cool. I like that segment. Like, it's a small one, mind you, but that's cool. And then you have the acid and evidence. Evidence as Coil, acid upstairs as Night Hunter and small guy. I think that's very fair. And one thing also, Vindicate the Guilty was the first map to introduce the no-wig zone, which right now is only on 2 maps, and I think that mechanic is really cool as a concept, to be like, okay, you can always use wigs except here. So that means all people that crutch on stun and blind and all that all the time, now all of a sudden have to, you know, deal with that segment without it. I think that is really cool, and for the time it was also innovative as shit. And then you have the witness segment with the witness downstairs. They changed it. Previously there was the big guy, and once the witness was at 1 HP left, then Night Hunter spawned. They switched that up, so Night Hunter is first and then the big guy arrives, which is a really good change they did balance wise. And then you have the witness upstairs with, you know, in the no-wig zone with a small guy, and a big guy with an axe spawning in afterwards. And yeah, like, I just like the witness segment. There's a reason I made a guide for that. There's a good reason why I made a guide for that, because I love the mechanic on its own. But yeah, it is it's really nice. The final encounter is also fine. However, here we come to the point, because previously, like, if we were doing this few months back, I would have maybe put it in S. But I can't anymore. And the main reason for that, Vindicate the Guilty is the map that has the most balance changes, and some of them are so fucking weird. It had the head thing, which made no sense, which, for the record, Snitch, I haven't mentioned that when we talked about Snitch. Snitch also had that change, but I think with Snitch, I don't want to say it's fine, but it's a lot less noticeable, I suppose. With Vindicate the Guilty, only having to do one head as one or, like, as solo or duo versus 2 heads, it's so noticeable, and it feels so bad, like, especially since this is supposed to be the 4th trial. Like, Kill the Snitch I still understand to some degree, because it's like the first main trial or whatever. Like, I'm not trying to justify them taking away the gens, but I can understand it. I cannot understand it for Vindicate the Guilty. And the final encounter has been so trivialized with what's it called? Like it was so nice back then when you were locked in with Coil in the courtroom. Like before, I don't know before which update it was. It might have been before 1.0. But before 1.0, you were locked in with Coil in the courtroom. And that was great. It wasn't obviously the hardest thing ever, especially if you were multiple people. You just lure them around and so on and so forth. But right now, you can just, if Coil threatens you, you can just run across outside the courtroom. And it was just, yeah. Like, that's kind of missing. Like, that. They reverted the Berserker change. Like, there was a change where for some reason they changed one update that the Berserker was stuck in the lobby instead of going towards the fountain. They reverted that afterwards, but then why did they do that in the first place? Also, the Berserker used to be at the exit. I think it would have been cool if he was at the exit still. They also removed him there. I know that was like weird and awkward, but I think him being there was something, you know? And now that's also gone, you know? Like, the exit is now Coil is after you and spawning in front of you if you're too fast. Big guy with axe and small guy outside. There used to be Berserker, like, chilling around the exit door. Which I think if they let that in, that would have been fine too. Like, I think what really destroys Vindicate the Guilty for me, and spoiler, that's not why it's my favorite main trial anymore, is simply they've done so many balance changes and some of them are just incredibly baffling. And I need to say it from the perspective, this trial I've played the most, probably. Like, as a main trial, this one I've grinded the most over my time of playing trials. Because I love this trial to death, like from speedruns to challenges to whatnot, this one I grinded the most, and I somewhat lost my love for it, because of some of the changes they did. The head change is stupid because the original voice line, yeah, that's a fair point too, because that doesn't even make sense lore-wise. Actually, you're right. Yeah, it doesn't even make sense lore-wise, the entire thing. You're right, I completely forgot about that, but you're completely right, sirs. One head and one acid bucket should be only for solo. They should just do 2 heads. Like, how this most of the time happens, when we get to head segment, is literally, okay, I get the acid from upstairs, and then, okay, I find the head, I'm just doing the puzzle real quick and I'm out. Like, most of the times, because I'm just have to do 1 head solo, most of the times I don't even have to deal with Coil at all. Whereas with 2 heads, it was like a bit more, you know, it was a bit more there. You have to stay longer in that area. And yeah, yeah. After doing 240 rebirths with Vindicate to get the final exam, all the voice lines have been engraved into my brain. I bet. But yeah. Unfortunately, I wish I could bring this up in S tier, but with good conscience, I can't. With good conscience, I can't. Because there are just too many icks, especially as someone who has grinded Courthouse so many times. Again, I've not played like Kill the Snitch, Root Canal, Orphanage, like Pervert the Futterman. Obviously Poison Mats is the newest one, so I haven't played that much either, obviously. But this one I've played the most, and especially from that perspective, I can't recommend it like higher up. Yeah, we're doing a tier list right now. Welcome in, Spinner. Welcome. How do we feel about prison chat? I will say I used to have a hatred for this, but not because of the map itself, but because I was speedrunning, like, I was A+ speedrun, like A+ no damage speedrunning Program X Season 2 way back in the day. And it was always the first main trial, And the post RNG was fucking ass. Ever since then, I learned more about post RNG, and nowadays, if I was doing that, I could easily, I could easily beat that. Like, I've gotten better at the game. Like, back then, a lot of the runs were also skill issue, mind you, but... That being said, I think this trial is fine. I think this trial is low A. Maybe? I don't know. But yeah, this trial is fine. You separate your one sector each. There's 4 sectors. Every sector has a key. And you have to go out. Cold patrolling is actually incredibly menacing. And... you know, fun to deal with. Like, because it's only that one straight hallway, like that L-shaped hallway. And I think that's really fun. I know a lot of people die there, but I find it hilariously fun. The exit is fine. I think what is stupid is that, for solo, if you wanna go for all the posters, there's a really good chance that you have to go into other sectors in order to get the posters. Which is, not the biggest fan of that, but fine. But also one thing I think is a bit weird. It's not necessarily a deal breaker for me. But sometimes the sectors are unbalanced. Especially if you're 4 people. You could have one guy who has to deal with one small guy in the dark. Mind you, every sector pretty much is in darkness. That's maybe something worth pointing out. Like, one guy gets the RNG. Okay, there's a small guy patrolling and maybe a screamer. Another guy adjacent gets a big guy and Night Hunter up his ass. Mind you, again, darkness. And Night Hunter can only be in one sector, to my knowledge. I don't think he can spawn in multiple of them. And that's a bit weird. Like, to also, like, in my opinion, for example, Incinerate the Sex Toys did the whole you separate from each other gimmick a little bit better than Release the Prisoners, in my opinion. So, yeah. I still think that's fine though. Again, I used to hate this map a lot. But that was mostly because I was doing that one speedrun. And I've recovered from that for the most part, so... It's more balanced. Yeah, it is more balanced. Like, Incinerate the Sex Toys is more balanced than Release the Prisoners. Because again, you can literally have... Have I even seen... No, I don't think I've seen 3 enemies in a sector, but... There's literally a difference between, okay, I'm in Sector A now, and I'm lucky that I have a small guy there, and that's it. And then you have someone who is like, oh, there's a small guy here, there's a screamer here, and there's Night Hunter also chilling his fucking nutsacks, you know? And that is weird. And especially if you're going in solo and it's just the draw of the luck if you get, you know, the one person that's maybe even staring at a wall and you just get your key and get out, versus Wall of China right in front of the lever switch gate. Yeah. I think it's high B, though. I think it's high B for me. Duel the Futterman. Duel the Futterman is really enjoyable. It has 2 sides, dark and light. It kinda sometimes has the same problem as Release Prisoners, unfortunately, where it's not too bad, but you can sometimes struggle if, like, on the light side is inherently less like way harder than the dark side. Especially if you get big guy at bright side. If you get small guy at bright side, you can use your door locks and shit, which all the doors are, you know, unopened, like unlocked doors because it's like a trial objective, so there's like this red thing around the doors when you enter. But yeah. There's a reason I normally do Dark Side first when I do like runs or speed runs or whatever the fuck. I normally do Dark Side first because Dark Side is indefinitely easier. Because on Light Side, you not only have to deal with an enemy that can actually see you, but also you have to deal with a Screamer. Which I don't get why they had to put in an extra Screamer there, when on the Dark Side they didn't. It's a bit weird. Yeah, but yeah. I think throwing hearts at targets will always be fun. I hate it because that means I have to actually hit something. Like on, with the targets, and I always miss my shots, so that's on me. But sometimes you can have these epic moments where there's a target like right over there and there's an enemy running towards you and you do a last second snipe to get the last target and then you can run out. Something like that, so yeah. It's fine though. Like overall it's fine. The Night Hunter segment is quite fun and quite fine, I should say. The final escape is really weird because for the most part, 99% of the time, you just turn left and you can immediately go down the stairs. Like a lot of the upstairs parts where most variators take place. Like if you get variators like the security gates, the timed gates and so on and so forth, you won't notice them until you go upstairs for the most part. But then again, for the most part, upstairs, unless it's blocked off, you just go left and go downstairs. The only reason normally to go, like to stay upstairs for the most part, is if you still have to do secondary objectives, like collecting rats, gifts and whatnot. Otherwise there's no reason to just turn left and go down the stairs easy peasy. So that is a bit weird. But I think it's also like, where do I put this though? Maybe around here too. Like it's fine, like it's 100% fine too, but I don't think it's on the level of these. I'm kind of figuring out what I like more of this. I think I like drill more. Yeah, I think I'm gonna place it right there. Gather Children of God. Okay, let's try to look at this objectively. What does Gather Children of God have? The same objective as Punish. With the same skill set, so you can like, okay, you can realize, okay, the button is right there, and then you know the kid is there, or the other way around, which is cool. It has the sound gates, which is neat for its time. For its time, it's neat. Getting the children to the van is fucking tedious as shit. I get it from the perspective, and you might be surprised I'm gonna put it in C and not D. Like, if you're a long-time viewer of mine, I shit on this trial all the time. I get it from a perspective that if you are multiple people, this trial is indefinitely easier, especially the last segment. But if you're playing solo, and I'm mostly a solo player, this last part, getting the children in the van, with, you know, with the big guy around, feels like this map, like the stretching of this map, but amplified over like 10-meter distance or something like that. I don't know, it's, especially if you're going for like no loadout, no damage, it's, yeah. That is the main key point what I don't like about this map. The children in the van is the best part. We don't talk about what's going on there. Thematically, it's obviously top tier, amazing. We don't talk about what's going on there, but gameplay wise, I don't know. I do not like it, and I also feel it's a salt in the wound, because previously we had, before Vindicate, this were all the maps that were in the game up until that point. For months. We had Omega, lasted for months. And then they were like, okay, we're releasing new main trial and 3 MKs for the already existing environments. And it was like, okay, fine, no Courthouse yet. Like, Courthouse MKs will come out with winter kills, fine. And yeah, but they went ahead and copied with, you know, they copied the mechanic from like Punish Miscreants with the new sound gates that later on will not be exclusive to this trial anymore anyways. And yeah, it felt so bad. Because Release the Prisoners and Duel the Futterman, both of these came out, had something unique going for them. Being separated, like, both sense. Like, here you had to separate at the very beginning on your own. There you were separated from the get-go. Like, that was unique shit. That was some unique shit, and that felt good. Like, as a new, refreshing thing. This was literally a copy-paste. Mind you, one redeeming quality, the map is a lot better than Punish Miscreants. The map is a lot better, but I think I'm also like ranking it below Punish simply because this came after Punish, which I don't know if this is fair, but since this doesn't really improve on anything that Punish has necessarily, I think it's gonna stay there. But I restrained myself and I did not put it in D, okay? I hope you're proud, chat. I hope you're proud. Anyways, now, in our timeline, how much time passed? Like 2 months? And Winter Kill releases for the first time. Alongside Winter Kills, Escape the Courthouse and Destroy the Evidence released. Escape the Courthouse. I said before that the Witnesses is my favorite mechanic in the entire game. So it shouldn't come to a surprise that the MK that is purely about Witnesses is gonna be S tier for me. I 100% get if you don't like the Witness mechanic, then this is not going to be S tier for you. I 100% understand you. But for me, it has to be. It literally has to be. For me, like, honest. Especially since they didn't, like, they didn't mutilate balance change something like they did with Vindicate the Guilty. 4th prime asset, like Enraged Witnesses, yeah. Like it's really enjoyable. For one, the tutorial witness that you have at the very beginning of Escape the Courthouse only has 1 bulb. So unlike in Vindicate the Guilty, he dies really quickly, which is good. And then you have the first guy that has 2 bulbs with like a big guy spawning, and once he is like down to 1 HP, another guy spawning. Then you have 2 sides with a small guy here, a small guy there, and a small guy patrolling the courtyard. This is like really interesting. Crossing paths. And a lot of environments that, especially if you don't have unreliable doors and you can use door locks and shit, you can just style on them. Like snipe kills through windows where they get sniped and then run all this way towards you. Like there's just one spot in like the darkness, like in the evidence, where you can snipe him through the double window, and because his AI comes towards you, he goes all the way, then the microwave is off cooldown and you can immediately kill them. Small stuff like that just tickle my brain. It just tickles my brain. And yeah, also one cycling him in the final segment, which is by the way a no-rig zone, which is also really cool that they have this gimmick as well. Like the last final boss, like the 4th prime asset witness, is also in a no-rig zone. Is really cool and interesting. And there's also like some spots, like I still remember when Winter Kills came out, I had this one clip where I locked him in and I punished the witness and like one-shot him at the end of the bright hallway, and then the cold snap came and I immediately hit and I got like the most epic kill at the time, and I felt so good about myself. Final escape is interesting because Coil is literally staring at you. Like, if you want to do this stealthily, you have to wait at the gate until, like, he turns around, which is a bit weird, but technically this is one of the few trials that it has a forced chase at the very end, even though you can, you know, play around it, which is interesting. And yeah, there's Coil and the big guy at the very end. And there's also a lot of small guys spawning, in the no-wick zone, alongside the Berserker just chilling around the main court. It's just so good. I just love this mechanic so much. I fully get that people don't like it. I fully get it, but I just adore this mechanic, so yeah. Top of A. Yeah, that's a fair assessment. Like, let's say if they change something, like Vindicate, this would obviously also be A for me, but for me this is S. For me this is S. Yeah, the witness mechanic is, yeah, it is a lot better than it was in the main trial, probably. I mean, the main trial also has some cool things. I just hope that the mechanic at some point will return, because I kind of want to kill witnesses and stall on them in other environments, because obviously I've played Vindicate a lot, I've played Escape the Courthouse a lot, so right now it's just, you know, the same environments, the same door locks, the same snipes, you know, so I hope at some point it's gonna change again, but we will have to wait and see. Destroy the evidence. I think this is the first one where chat will lose me, and I will get unfollowed, and I will get unsubscribed, and I will have people get me blocked. It's gonna be an A somewhere. I don't know where it is in A, but it's gonna be an A somewhere. I don't know where though. Low A? I'm gonna put it low A for now. Yeah, maybe. I might pull it up, but it's gonna be an A somewhere. I don't know where yet. But basically the acid mechanic, the main reason I like the acid mechanic so much, and a lot of people are very confused about it, is literally because the acid mechanic makes you vulnerable. Like, you can take the trade-off and take damage, like you still have that option, but in its core it makes you vulnerable, which is really cool as a mechanic. And the gate RNG is something you can 100% learn. Like, a lot of people complain about the gates being completely randomized. Like, feeling vulnerable, it's confirmed. I'm not a bottom. I just wanna point that out. Anyways, the gate RNG you can 100% learn. I will not keep in mind that this is currently bugged. Like, currently the gate RNG, instead of being 1, 2, 3, it's 1, everything close, 2, 3. Which is currently, right now when I'm making this video, it is a bug. So right now this is a bug, so there you have to say that, but learning the gate RNG, learning to acid run without taking damage, like getting the timing down, in general, it is really nice. A little bit of a missed opportunity maybe would have been having Night Hunter in evidence maybe, and then you have to abuse the bright area where the acid is, but also smash buff makes this incredibly interesting because you can smash open the corp doors to get the acid easier. I think that adds another layer to it, which is pretty cool. And yeah, call patrolling at the courtroom itself is also really interesting. Like in general, I'm a huge fan of this mechanic overall. Maybe the thing that's holding it back for me from being S is just like the witness mechanics, like a lot more fun, and maybe at this point also a bit of repetitiveness because I'm always running the same way. Then again, this is also a plus. Like, for example, to put it in perspective, whenever you see me do Destroy the Evidence, I always walk the same way with the first asset and go get like either in the courtroom immediately or right in front of the last gate before it, because there are guaranteed paths you can take. Like besides the gate RNG, you can also learn guaranteed paths to, in case the gates are blocked, you immediately know where to go next. And this is like also really, really cool. But yeah, big guy, a small guy outside, small guy lobby, small guy evidence, big guy library, coil main courtroom, I think. And maybe a screamer somewhere that I probably forgot about, I think. But yeah, overall this is really enjoyable. I think maybe at this point it is actually justified to be here, though. Yeah, big grunt is evident. Wait, no, big grunt is library, though. No. Like in the bright area's library, and there's normally the big guy. Small guy is... Wait, never mind, you're right. You're right. I mixed that up, I'm sorry, I mixed that up. You're right. Well, you're totally right, Lito. I mixed that up. Do you think Rain should be in this game? Yeah, maybe. Maybe. Would be cool. Yeah. I'm currently actually having a hard time if I find this more enjoyable than Root Canal or any of that. Or if it being here is justified. Because for the longest time, this was easily among my favorites. Easily. But I think also one of the things that just also holds it back, I think, is that the acid spawns are fixed. If the acid spawns were a little bit randomized, that would boost it as well. Because right now when I'm doing Destroy the Evidence, it's literally going through a checklist and, you know, adjusting to the gate RNG and the enemy, like the current enemy placement. If the acid was a little bit more randomized, I think that could easily, like, put it up a little bit higher. But right now I think I'm a little bit fatigued of it maybe too. Doesn't change the fact that this is among my favorites, so like it being an A, like it deserves being an A in my opinion, even though it's probably A- at this point. Pervert the Futterman, I don't know. I'm gonna put it here for now. I don't think it's as bad as people say it is. I don't think it's as bad as people say it is. First segment is pretty cool with Oscar because it's a small guy patrolling with screamers, and that entire basement is actually really small, surprisingly. You're uploading this to YouTube? Yes. I'm gonna cut it together and upload the tile list, yeah. Because people on YouTube have been asking for the tile list for a while, so yeah. But yeah. The first basement segment is actually, really nice, like as a quote-unquote stealth segment, and it's very claustrophobic. I mean, you can technically just take the shortcut, but then you have to ask the big guy a question, and I don't know if you wanna do that. And all it's just a really small space, surprisingly, with a really easy objective. And when you're using the conveyor belt in the red box room that is bright as shit, you're sitting ducks, so yeah. That's pretty cool. Granted, the small guy, if he's patrolling normally, you shouldn't be able to see you unless you get some weird angle. But I think that's fine. Especially the first conveyor belt segment is completely fine. Just get the key and enter the toy factory. There is a small guy waiting for you at the end of the hallway that on Ultra will instantly see you and chase you, and you have to make sure that he doesn't come in the room with Daddy's little bitch. So you have to lose him, potentially. And then you start a production process with key A and the A box, which is fair enough. However, this is also, again, it's not a small space, but it is still a very limited space. And you are basically locked in with Gooseberry still. So, actually, chat, does anyone know if once the production has started, if during that A segment, can you leave technically? Because I don't even know if you can. Like, can you leave through the double door where you came from? Yeah, leave the production area back outside, can you? Nope. See, that makes it even better, because then technically this is a locked in segment. You know how we talked earlier about Vindicate the Guilty and the final segment, that it is terrible that they got rid of, you know, being locked in? This is a good segment to be locked in with Gooseberry. There's still a lot of doors with door locks to work with and so on and so forth. And you can abuse the darkness in storage. But overall, it's pretty tricky. And I kind of enjoy that. And the conveyor belt isn't like too tricky, especially since it has 2 exit points, like one right in front of the A console and the other one like on the opposite side. And yeah, overall that segment is pretty nice. Then the entire conveyor belt run, like, to spoil a little bit, the conveyor belts and crushed sex toys are a lot harder to deal with than in the main trial. If you get that timing down, and then the conveyor belts in main trial are not hard to deal with. Like, if you get to a point where you learn that, you have to do a little bit of waiting, and I know once you have to wait for like 10 seconds, the TikTok attention span speedrunners are gonna lose their marbles, but it's very doable. Just, you know, get box B, C is patrolled by a small guy, get them towards the conveyor belt. And by the time you are down, there's a good chance that B is already arriving and then C shortly after. Then you put C on the conveyor belt, and by the time you run upstairs, you might already catch it. And if you miss it, then you have to wait, but yeah. I don't think it's as big of a deal on this map as people make it out to be, is my main point. Gooseberry is patrolling the entire thing. It's worth pointing out, I've mentioned that when we played it for the very first time during 1.0, that this map is so lit up like a Christmas tree. It's actually insane, like from a difficulty perspective. And a lot of the hiding spots in the middle are also invalid for some reason. Like, sometimes I hide behind cages with mannequins and Gooseberry still sees me. So that's interesting, I suppose. But this entire, like, the entire segment is interesting from that perspective as well, because let's say you do no stamina, which we did back then. It was actually incredibly threatening to be out in the light 24/7, so yeah, there's that. Getting the keys is an interesting mechanic, even though it's not new, because we have seen keys before. It's still very interesting, the whole key is in this room, key is in that room mechanic, because you can outplay it with X-Ray, which is really cool. Like, X-Ray actually has some notable utility here. And the security doors are also very interesting, that will return in Shutdown Factory. Like, in Shutdown Factory they return, but it is also a very interesting mechanic. There's a small guy and Night Hunter upstairs, which is fine. Night Hunter is alright utilized. It's still funny though, because I still remember the very first time I played this. I actually did not run into Night Hunter at all, because I think I got maintenance and break room. So I didn't even have to go to the office And when you get that, that's like god tier RNG, which is a bit funny. But yeah. Then you do the key thing. Then you do the cranking little bitch towards the incinerator, which also has a big guy, which sometimes can be a problem. That part is completely RNG though, because you can get an early spawn or you can get a very, very late spawn where you can just do the objective literally for free, and it's really inconsistent and really weird. And then the final encounter is not the worst final encounter, I think. It's not the worst, but it's so weird. It takes a really high difficulty and very bad luck for you to have to go and use the pump again, like use the valve again. Like normally you deal with the one small guy and the one big guy and the screamer in the area. Hope for a good RNG, to be fair. Like, sometimes you can get really good valve RNG that is right next to the shortcut, and sometimes it's like in the middle of nowhere, and then you're just like, okay, how do I get out of here? And yeah, you normally can do that in one go unless you get ultra unlucky, which is a bit weird. Also, Gooseberry coming in through the elevators, staying a bit and then going is incredibly weird. It's incredibly weird, especially since you can have it where you're about to leave the dark area with the valves, right? And you want to go towards the pump. She can spawn in the dark area, and then her AI sometimes stays in the dark area, and then you can just pump for free. Like, this is so weird. It's so weird sometimes. And sometimes she's just, yeah, she can spawn behind you in the dark area. You know how right in front of shortcuts there are also elevators? Right when you exit through the shortcut, she can spawn behind you in the dark area and then either come out and actually be threatening or stay in the dark area for whatever reason. And then, you know, it's free. It's so weird. I mean, in general, I'm just not a fan of the whole final encounter thing, where, like in a final encounter, the enemy spawns, like the prime asset spawns in and out. Part of me hopes they never do that again, because that is so weird. Like, I get why, because the area around the incinerator has not much to work with, and you are pretty much locked in until you unlock the shortcuts towards the dark area or the shortcut towards the exit. You're kind of locked in, so I get it a little bit, but it's still so weird. Again, it's not the worst final encounter. I think the final encounter in Root Canal is worse, for example. I think that one is a lot worse executed, but that one is also not great. The exit is actually menacing though, like with Gooseberry and the big guy with the axe. In that, like with all the cars and like the parking checkpoint area. That is actually menacing for final escape. Probably the most... No, is it the most tricky? I mean, yeah, potentially the most tricky escape in a main trial, maybe. Yeah, I think Courthouse is even easier than that. Like, Courthouse is easier than that. Okay, I might be talking out of my ass, to be fair. I might be talking out of my ass. Anyways, how do we rate Toy Factory after this? I don't think... Like, it's not C or D. It's somewhere in B, probably. But I don't know where exactly. There's a lot... There's a lot to appreciate about Toy Factory, in my opinion, for me. I just don't know where exactly that is. Maybe middle? I don't know. Like, thinking it a little bit in my head, I think maybe here. I might have to change that placement again. One thing is for certain though, it's gonna stay in B somewhere. I just need... We just need to develop this maybe a little bit more, and then I maybe get a better understanding. Like, my thought process was... Like, it's better than these two, for example, because these two are as all this time, and I find them less enjoyable because of it, I guess. Maybe that's the reasoning right here. I don't know. Crush the Sex Toys. Crush the Sex Toys is the MK that also features the conveyor belt mechanic that all people enjoy, I've heard. Here's the thing though. One thing that is really cool about this MK is that there is the UV light mechanic. I think that is an underrated mechanic, I think. Because you have to do an objective without doing an objective in order to get the other objective correctly. I think that's really cool. What would be cool, on top of that, I don't think it's in the game, but I've talked about this a lot with X-Ray and shit, on how to buff X-Ray. If X-Ray showed the correct box, this would unironically go up to something like A. I'm not joking. Because that would give this trial such a level of depth of like, okay, you run X-Ray, you see the correct box, but you sacrifice offensive capabilities with stun or blind and whatnot. Or you don't run X-Ray, but you have to do the generator, or you risk taking damage. And that would be very interesting. Right now it isn't like that, unfortunately. But food for thought, could be interesting. That being said, the conveyor belt mechanic is... piece of work on, like, unlike Pervy, it's... Like, to be fair, it's not the worst thing in the world if you can just get it and do it and you are somewhat stealthy. I get it, if you want to speedrun, it's like actual ass, but if you are mindful about everything, it's fine. Like, to put it into perspective, there are only 4 enemies, and that's something I keep forgetting. There are only 4 enemies in this area. Small guy at the very beginning, Gooseberry patrolling throughout, big guy with axe patrolling the shipping thing, and small guy patrolling C. Like, there aren't that many enemies in this map at all. It's just very interesting, but it's still incredibly threatening. And I mean, yeah, you just have to avoid the goose, use bottles and shit as a distraction to make conveyor belt things, and yeah. Like, overall, I think... I know people will hate me, but I think this is fine. Like, overall, Crush the Sex Toys is fine. Like, don't get me wrong, this is not my favorite trial either. Like, I'm not saying that. But people overreact to some of the conveyor belt things. Like, I feel people overreact to that. And watch now me lose 1 billion followers because I said that, but... I think the whole dynamic of Gooseberry just patrolling everywhere and you have to be on the lookout, but also like keep the conveyor belts in mind is an interesting challenge. And you know, you have then stuff like, okay, I know that this box is like coming towards the thing, but the goose is after me. Okay, I'm barricading now, so the goose is now stuck, so I can get this package and get it towards the next belt. Like, there's a lot of strategy going into this as well. Maybe lobby is the place for that. I don't know. Unsubbing. Suck it, speedrunner loser. What? I'm sorry. But yeah, I think that's fine. Like the thing is, at this point, maybe why we already established at the very beginning that B is, you know, a lot of the stuff in B is, okay, I'm indifferent about it. And besides the good qualities of the gen mechanic and stuff, I also feel indifferent about it. I know when I play with people together and they see Crush Sex Toys, they like die in a grave, but at this point I've also played it enough that I just don't mind getting this MK challenge as well. It's really cool that it's among the harder ones, and you know, there's like, for example, if I get this on Countdown or Toxic Shock, it's actually really threatening, which, you know, Sussing Crush is always fun though. You know, when he picks up the wrong box and nukes everyone, yeah, that is incredibly fun, I agree. Yeah, exactly, Twitch bait. I think a lot of people have been scarred by... I think that's also true for Pervert the Futterman, by the way. I think a lot of people just have been scarred by Pervert the Futterman, Toxic Shock, and Crush Sex Toys, Toxic Shock. Yeah, exactly, Toxic Shock. I have been scarred by that. Yeah, I think I'm gonna place it here for now. Incinerate. Incinerate is gonna be one of these that is like higher. Like in A somewhere, me thinks. Incinerate is one of the hardest MKs in the game right now. And I think it's like, it's hard, but it's hard in a sense that it is hard but fair once you learn what you need to do. Like, it's not hard, but, you know, it's not necessarily hard but bullshit. So, I'm just gonna place it right here for now. It's fun with 4 players, agreed. So yeah, with Incinerate, you separate again. You have up to 2 cards on either side. And you have to push it. You have to get keys with the before mentioned key in there mechanic. Which also X-Ray comes in play again. I'm gonna rate it up because of that. And... yeah, it's a push objective. You can push it fast and draw attention to yourself, or push it slowly, surely, and stealth, which gives it a little bit more depth. I didn't mention that about Root Canal and Kill Snitch push, because it wasn't really necessary there, but here it is really worth pointing out, especially on higher difficulty. You have 1 big guy at every entrance, 2 small guys patrolling in the adjacent sector, and the goose spawning in and out. Which the goose spawning in and out is fine, and I think also good, because it gives you that sense of dread. It's just really funny if you get the RNG where you're on the bad side. Like, for the record, there's a good side and a bad side. For me, the bad side is the one with the bathroom, and the good side is the other one. And let's say you spawn on the bad side, and you just get Gooseberry 24/7, while your co-op duo is, like, going home free. That is something that can happen, and that is pretty funny. That being said, we talked about it earlier in the Release Prisoner segment. This one is a lot better balanced, because the enemy distribution is at least even. Now, I mentioned before, there are like 2 different sides, and one side is easier than the other one. There's nothing to avoid that. Like the one, what is that one? The one where, like the one with the bathroom is the harder side, in my opinion. For both the entrance and the actual, like, inside the factory. I think that one is harder. Of course I will Twitch bait. Of course I will. I hope your toe gets better though. But yeah, I think Incinerate is just, it is, like, on higher difficulties, Incinerate is actually really tricky. Like, again, as a perspective of, like, okay, like, Incinerate from a perspective of, like, no loadout or whatever is actually insane. but insane and somewhat fair. It's also worth pointing out that everything is lit up, but you have these checkpoints, like this room is dark, this room is dark, this room is dark. The track all the way is bright as shit, and enemies will catch you if they see you pushing, but you have a lot of evasion technically into dark rooms, and I think that's also fair balanced in that regard. That being said, I don't know where to put this. I think it's above these two. It might even be... Actually, it might even be higher. For me personally. I'm having a hard time now. Open the gates like this? I can see that. I can see that actually. Yeah, fine. I can see that. Tilt scales. That one is a toughie to rank. Tilt Scares is actually really tough to rank. It's not S. And I'm almost tempted to say it's not even A. And let me hear you out. Let me hear you out, right? Then the reason is not that they got rid of objectives, by the way. I think that was a case of them getting rid of a fourth head was actually alright and justified. I don't think that is the problem with it. The problem with Tilt Scales is that, yeah, it has this dynamic, okay, I do the box, and while I do the box, the room is lit up, and you are more vulnerable to people. But, for the most part, have you noticed that the areas where you get the heads are completely pitch black? There's no night hunt on this map. And for the most part, besides some rooms, the small guys that patrol these areas are completely ignoring these rooms. Like, okay, the one like at the further back, yeah, the small guy goes there every once in a while, but for the most part, especially if you're breaking line of sight, when like the small guy patrols, they normally don't even come into the room. Like, for the most part, you're just doing the head boxes more or less in peace, getting the heads and getting them on the scale. Like, Coil patrols from box to box, that's something to keep in mind. But for the most part, he's the only threat. Like, the other guys patrolling, they don't really do a whole lot. And for the most part, it just feels like fetch quest head gathering. Like, giving Lady G head. And the enemies, like, I don't want to say the enemies aren't threatening, but they aren't really threatening. Like, for the most part, you just look at the map, go towards the places. If there are enemies nearby, if you have to deal with enraged enemies, you are a little bit more quiet maybe. But for the most part, you just go to the places. There's a good chance that when you do the heads, no one will interrupt you. And if Coil comes, okay, then you just wait. Because the timer for the heads, because some of the rooms are way bigger than in main trial, some of the rooms have like a 90-second timer or something like that, which gives you enough time for Coil to come in, check the box, and leave out. And then you can still type in the number. And, you know, if it goes bad, then okay, then you run out of the room to avoid damage, and, you know, then the enemies come and are like, oh, what just happened? I'm just gonna open locker, and then they return to normal. Like, for the most part, the enemies in this map really don't feel threatening at all. For some reason, because the entire thing is pitch black. Yes, if you are doing the puzzle box, then the room is lit up, and then you might have to worry that if the small guy patrols, that you don't go into his field of view. But like, chances are in 80% of the rooms, the small guy doesn't even arrive there. He doesn't even come there. For example, the, besides civil trials, that other room, besides civil trials, like at the very end, like on the opposite side of that other room that is almost guaranteed to have a head, that room, the small guy never shows up. Same with the under construction room, like the big bright room where in the main trial is like the big bright room with the acid. The small guy also never shows up. The only threat there is maybe a screamer, Frank if he feels like spawning in, and Coil. But that's it. That's literally it. And Coil you can just avoid by breaking line of sight. He checks the box and he pisses off if you turned on the box. If you didn't turn on the box, then you just wait in the dark for a few seconds and then he pisses off and that's it. It's like... Tilt can be really long and fun like a one night stand, but it can also be really miserable and also like... Yeah... It doesn't help that it's really long. That's what I meant. Like this was... Like originally... When this patch came out, and they were like, okay, we are removing a head from tilt scales, I was like, okay, this is... I don't agree necessarily with this, but I can see why they did that. Now playing with it a little bit more, it's so much better of an MK with only 3 heads. Because previously, it was the exact same thing, just to avoid enemies that, you know, aren't as threatening. Just doing your head fetch quest, but instead of 3 heads with 4. The only redeeming quality, besides that, is maybe that, the exit is a little bit tricky at times. With the small guy, with the big guy, with Coil chilling, and so on and so forth. And then you have to make sure you don't run into homeless people. Can be exciting. And again, I talked a little bit of shit about this one, but it's still gonna be like maybe around here, because the mechanic itself is fun. It's just the trial around which it is built upon is not really. Like, let's say if one, let's picture this. You have a similar thing to, let's say, Council Autopsy. One guy has Night Hunter, one guy has a small guy, and that can, like, switch around. Let's say they did something like that. It would be a lot more interesting, because then... Thank you, Furbite, by the way, for following, thank you. Because then you would have the dynamic where, okay, on this side, this time it's Night Hunter, so I have to be careful of the dark, but then I can do the box and turn that on, and then the room is bright, and then all of a sudden he loses his eyesight and pisses off, you know? It has a little bit more dynamic, but right now it's literally pitch black, you just do your thing, and for the most part the enemies don't even care about you. Or maybe that's just my experience. Maybe it's like, yeah. Also, the one thing that's interesting is, like, you can... What I'm always doing is you can delay the, picking, like, dropping head. And that call comes even rarer. Because as soon as you drop a head of a box that you've done, he doesn't check that box anymore. So he checks the boxes that are left, but also, you know, the Lady Justice room way more often. So that's, I guess, a cool strategy, I guess, but it's not really redeeming factor. The sound gates, I guess, are nice. Like the sound gates themselves, as a cool side mechanic, I suppose. It does feel a lot better than something like Gather Children, if you want to have a comparison, because the head thing is an actual, like, engaging mechanic with the numbers. And some numbers in some of the rooms are actually really tricky, which is enjoyable, but yeah. This was like a one-time thing, but I once had a time where Coil and the normal ground were in perfect rotation camping a box, so I literally couldn't turn it on without getting into a chase. Yeah, sometimes I guess that can happen, you're right. But then again, the chances for that happen... Like, most of the brightness in this area is literally the entry and, like, the middle segment. where it doesn't even really matter if you're seen. Like, you then have to be, okay, stealthy, I just bunny hop past a sound gate, for example, and then I'm fine again, you know? Yeah, unfortunately I have to place it a little bit low, I have to admit. I have to admit, I wish I could rank this higher, because overall I enjoy the Courthouse environment, but yeah. Over the time that I've played this, I've grown to dislike it a little bit. Like, beside, like, around Courthouse MKs, like, Escape Courthouse always, Destroy Evidence always high, like it used to be, like, higher or whatnot, even, like, Destroy the Evidence. That one was always not among the highest ones. It was fine to me, but it wasn't among the highest, and the more that I think about it, it's like middle of the road for me. Shutdown Factory, I think that one is okay. I like the dynamic of the panels, and then you lock down the sector, and either you have to do the corp thing, the shutter door, or spawn in more enemies that I think stay permanently. Don't quote me on that, but I think they even stay permanently, the enemies summoned from the security gates. Unlike Pervert the Futterman. In Pervert the Futterman, they despawn after a while, but I'm pretty sure in Shutdown Factory they actually stay permanently, which is a really interesting twist. Like, it isn't like that on Pervert the Futterman. It is not like that at all. So that's really interesting. Panel thing, we have seen it a bunch of times. Not really the most unique thing ever. What even are the patrols? Big guy, small guy, small guy, gooseberry spawning in occasionally. This is the kind of map where the prime asset spawning in occasionally is perfect, because they are done always up your ass for the most part, and that's the idea of that. That, you know, they spawn beside you, like where presumably you are onto the objective, and then they spawn right behind you. So that's really nice. Blocked shit can make it really, really tricky. There was one part where I was playing with someone and we actually got soft locked. That was the only map that soft locked itself, because we shut down sector, I think it was B and D, and we couldn't get to C anymore, like C upstairs, because the only way to go to C was a blocked path. So that was unfortunate. That's maybe worth pointing out. That's the only map that I've ever seen had an actual soft lock like this. And yeah, I mean this is chill, but it's also, in my opinion, just middle of the road. Like it's chill. Overall, it's chill, fun, whatever, but I think it's also just middle of the road. It's not really innovative. It's only getting incredibly tricky, potentially, if you trigger all the alarm gates, which you don't have to. Which, to be fair, that also just adds a layer of depth to it, but yeah. There's also just not a whole lot to point out. The exit can sometimes be tricky, but you can just bait Gooseberry to break down the door, which I've been doing for a while. That works quite well. And yeah. Dealing with two big runs when trying to open the door is scary. Yeah, if you're interacting with the security doors, then yeah. There are a lot of enemies spawning in, and then it's like, holy shit, dude, what the fuck just happened? But like, this trial is alright. It's not bad, but it also doesn't have anything special going for it. You get what I mean? Like, it's not, oh my god, this is like special. This is probably one of the most nice but basic MKs we've gotten in a while, you know? Like, the objective is also like we've seen the panel thing a billion times before. It's not something, you know, new or anything. But yeah, it's cool. One thing that is cool about this, though, is the change in light, that if you shut down a sector, the light actually goes off. It's a nice touch, I guess. That's maybe worth pointing out. That's pretty cool. But yeah, overall, it's just the middle of the road. I don't mind it at all, but I don't get like thrill or hype for it either. So I think B is absolutely justified. Like B, I think is absolutely justified for this. I like how basic it is sometimes, and then sometimes they go a bit overkill with a simple MK. Not wrong. Anyways, the question is, is middle of B the correct placement for this? I think I like Drill a little bit more, actually. I think I like Drill a little bit more than this. Cancel Autopsy? I think that's fine. Maybe. I'm gonna put it in A for now. Maybe it's gonna be S. I think this main trial is going to change depending on how it goes. I have a feeling I have some new content bias towards this, because this is the main trial that has the new prime asset Franco, who has a fucking gun. Like as a fucking gun, as a ranged weapon, that introduced the laser traps, which, holy shit, these things are actually menacing. Like, this kickstarted new mechanics that I've been yearning for, you know, a long time. Ever since they nerfed the Screamer, I was yearning for mechanics that actually, like, that didn't force people to play completely stealthy and whatnot, but punished them for being reckless. And Franco and the laser traps do that really well. But yeah. Start of it is lifting up the crane, fair enough. Big guy smashing down the corpse is hilarious with a screamer right there. Depending on the variators, like with ranged enemies, you get instant chase, which is like, holy shit, dude. There's a small guy patrolling the loading of the trains itself. You go down up the tower, press the button, you see pinata action, and then you go to the drug lab. Same small guy might chase you, big guy right in front of the drug lab. You go into the drug lab, you pull a lever, there's a small guy patrolling. This segment is pretty easy. Like, pretty easy stealth segment. Getting them through, same mechanic as Cleanse the Orphans film reel. Which, you know, fair enough. And you're just getting them on the, like, the drugs on that. Then you have to push the cart. That one has the same mentality as Incinerate, that if you push slowly, the enemies don't hear you. And on higher difficulties, this is especially, like, useful and important. Unlike Kill the Snitch and Root Canal, you can, with these two, you can get away with pushing stuff faster. With Poison Medicine, it can be a lot more tricky on higher difficulties, because the small guy in the lab is gonna notice you and chase you a little bit, and it's gonna be a bit more annoying. The code symbol mechanic is quite cool, in my opinion. It's not my most favorite mechanic ever, but it is a really cool twist on, like, having to hold an item like the microwave thing and still gathering symbols like you did with the heads. That's pretty cool. And the training segment itself with Franco is really nice. Now, there is one thing that I would have loved to see more, and that is, this segment has a shitload of darkness for a segment that could have been a lot more threatening, if you get what I mean. either make some of that more bright, so Franco can actually live up to his full potential. Don't get me wrong, like getting the drugs from the trains towards the cart is really menacing with him patrolling around there. But there's a lot of darkness where Franco just, if you are remotely quiet, Franco can't really do anything for the most part. And especially when you introduce an enemy that can shoot you, it's kind of rough a little bit, I won't lie, but whatever. So either make a little bit more brightness, or you, instead of the small guy patrolling, you set Night Hunter, like, it's somewhere patrolling. I think that would have been cool and better, at least on higher difficulties. But here you have that segment. Then you have the thing where you have to push the cart back, which is probably the hardest segment in the entire trial, where you have Franco, like, shooting at you if he sees you. Big guy with axe patrolling the first half of the track, and the small guy patrolling the second half of the track. And that thing feels like airport security. Which I should probably also point out, for this trial, I've done so many dumb challenges for already. Like, we had the run recently in Escalation without loadout, with Countdown, that was incredibly intense. But I also did the thing during the no humbling, like the humbling weekly, with the health sickness thing, where I did that without running and shit. And that was on that map too, so I guess I might be biased towards that as well. And yeah, you get it towards the... You get it back towards the drug thing, fill up the drug, same thing as the first segment, then you get the poison. The poison mechanic, it's okay. I think it's better executed than Poison Cattle. It's a bit better executed there. Because you don't really need to use hiding spots in like the Chemco facility. You don't really need to, for the most part. Because there's a lot of safe areas around it. But it's still okay. You have Night Hunter downstairs, small guy upstairs, big guy patrolling boat alongside Screamer, and the small guy patrolling the lab. And yeah, you get the poison from there. You have a bunch of options. You can take the shutter gate out, you can take the shortcut, you can go over the boat directly, which is, you know, quick but gets you exposed. You can go like towards the crew cabinet thing, like towards the side, which is a little bit safer, but you know, it takes more time. There's a bunch of strategy involved in that as well. Then you crank the lever, which is probably the most boring part of the mission, I won't lie. Then you get the drugs, which is a bit of a twist because you have to get a shitload of them and completely fill your inventory. Then you have the final encounter with Franco, which has this really cool gimmick that you can immediately hide when he shoots the window, and then he insta-loses you, so you can technically stealth this, or you can play aggressively. It is really weird in the final segment though, that the saw of the blade and the drug package filling make zero noise. That is incredibly weird. That is incredibly weird. At least the saw should make some sort of noise that triggers Franco. You know, in the same vein as Kill the Snitch, where you push the lever and, you know, and you hear that because it has like 3 bars of noise or something. The saw should at least do the same amount of noise. So you have to do that quickly, and then Franco is like forced towards your position or something. I get why Franco isn't that much of an issue, because the idea of the AI is that he patrols like the sub deck, whatever the fuck, but then he also patrols above the deck and be like right in front of the drug lab. Because the idea of the developers was that you weren't able to just stack them, like stack the drugs, and you would take multiple trips. Like, Franco is balanced for that. That's why his patrol times are really weird. Maybe you can fix that with an extra enemy, I don't know. But yeah, the final segment obviously is not the hardest. I think... I mean, it might actually be among the weaker ones, I won't lie. Final escape is incredibly hectic because you have multiple escape routes, but all of them are incredibly long. You can go through the special escape in the train station, where for some reason Night Hunter is at, which is really weird. You can go back all the way through the drug lab with the small guy and the big guy and go through the tracks that way, or you can use a co-op jump right next to the train station as well. There are multiple options, and you know, if the Franco area around the exit of the trial is actually really cool because it's really weirdly built with like different elevation and stuff, and it's really cool designed in my opinion. So you can have some dodging maneuver if you wanna dodge his shots and shit. But yeah, it might be that it is new, but overall this feels like such an incredibly fun trial. If I were to invest a lot of time in a trial right now for some dumb challenge, I would do one for this easily. That being said, there are some negatives to this. I think the enemy placement itself is actually genius, considering that we are still using basic enemies. The small guy around the lab is really well placed. The big guy around the boat is actually threateningly placed, and so on and so forth. Like, the enemy placement is better than in any other trial, I think. Like, for how limited it feels like, because these are basic enemies, right? But they're still fairly well executed in my opinion. That being said, Blind Guy is still missing. I haven't mentioned it, but he's missing off of the entire toy factory. He's on vacation. Where's Toy Factory there? Like, he's not in the Toy Factory environment at all. And the same goes for the dogs. Like, he's completely missing, even though you could have utilized him somewhere, I feel like. Like, somewhere you could have been able to utilize him, probably. And Night Hunter is also just sad how underutilized he is. I know earlier I talked about how in Vindicate the Guilty he feels a bit overused, but here it just feels straight up like an insult. Like, a lot of the times when you play this, you don't even need to deal with Night Hunter, because the 2 times he spawns, one is at that very specific exit route in the train station, and the other time is downstairs in Poison, where sometimes if you get the RNG that Poison is middle and upstairs, you don't even need to go downstairs, and you don't have to deal with him. And that is really odd in my opinion. You should put him in shipping yard or something. Yeah, exactly. That would have been a lot more interesting, at least on higher difficulties. Like, obviously I'm not saying, oh my god, they should do this on standard or intensive. I'm talking about, like, psychosurgery, obviously, but... yeah, that being said, I have to do this. I'm gonna put it in S. I have to put it in S. I just like the overall package. It has flaws. It has some flaws for sure, but... and when we do this again, I've said it before, it might drop down. Like, maybe like, when the next main trial comes out, which I'm assuming it's a Franco trial. And then I will realize, okay, the dogs did what I like about Franco a lot worse than the other main trial. Then I might realize, okay, some of this isn't as cool as I remembered, and my opinion changes, and then it goes down to A. But for now, I'm gonna put it in S, methinks. Teach. Let's just fucking finish this. I'm talking way too long about this, by the way. So apologies for that. This is gonna be a way longer video than I wanted it to be. Anyways, Teach. Instinct tells me here. Like, that's what my instinct tells me, but... basically, can you tell the YouTube audience how cool us Twitch chatters are? Anyways, Teach, has a gimmick where there's 3 floors on a police station. You need to get a film reel. There is 6 doors. You get a key at the beginning, you open a door, you get 2 keys, you have 1 for each door. Behind each of these doors are another 2 keys, and then there are 4 last doors, and one of these last 4 ones is the film reel. It's incredibly RNG heavy. You can get incredibly lucky and get it really quickly, as we did in our 100 escalation attempt that Crab posted in his highlights, where we got a stick together under 2 minutes, which was incredibly insane. Or you can go it can happen that you have to go through every single room. Upstairs, small guy. Downstairs, big guy with axe. Some screamer somewhere. Like basement is Night Hunter. Patrolling, chilling. The rooms are entirely randomized, which is fine. Like, this is fine RNG in my opinion. And the cool part about this is, if there is one map I can recommend X-Ray on, it would be this map. Because with X-Ray you can see the key, and you can also see the film reel, which speeds up things a lot if the stars align. Unfortunately, right now, X-Ray has an incredibly long cooldown still of like 100, not 100, maybe 90 seconds on psychosurgery, so you can't really make use of it that much, but it's a map that has really cool X-Ray synergy. You know how we talked about how cool it would be if Crush the Sex Toys supported something like that? Teach 100% support something like that, and that makes the map really cool overall. Hold up. Like that factor alone pulls it high up for me, because it has this sort of level strategy that I wish Crush Sex Toys had. This does have that level of strategy. But yeah, cool environment, just right enough RNG, just right enough the enemies. I think this is like among the most creative and best in the game right now, in my opinion. It's simple, but effective, in my opinion. And I find, every time I load into this in escalation, I'm having a good time. So, there's that. I don't think there's much else to add to it, though. Fuel. Fuel. I'm gonna put it in B for now. This is how you do a Sabo lockdown properly. The first segment is weird. You can have the cool thing where with Smash you can just skip the first segment. That is a plus. A minus is that it is really weird that sometimes you just have a Screamer there, and sometimes there's Night Hunter there, and that's just entirely up to RNG. Similar to how you can have good enemy or bad enemy RNG and release prisoners. It's really weird. You do the first gen, then you have to go either left or right. Depending on what you get, it might be easier or harder. Normally the dark side, like evidence side, is way easier than, you know, the right side, which is a lot harder, but overall not too bad. You go through the courtyard, you do the second gen, then you get the third fuel, which is, you know, the other side that you didn't get this time around. And then you get to the final part, and the main reason why this is not C or D for me is simply because the final part is incredibly intense, because on higher difficulties there are like 6 enemies in the final part. There's Coil, who previously patrolled already. There's Night Hunter, there is 2 big guys, there's a small guy, there's a Screamer, and maybe even more enemies. They camped the gen. Not really. Like, they're patrolling. They're not camping necessarily, but they're patrolling from like light side to bright, like from bright side to dark side, and so on and so forth. It feels incredibly menacing to have to deal with 6 enemies, but at the same time, the game is fair enough that you have a lot of evasion places, in theory, but also places where, you know, you will find death. I feel that this final segment elevates this MK a lot, and and I hope a lot of MKs in the future have a similar spiel to it. Like, obviously on psychosurgery, I don't want this to be the standard, but I think for that reason alone, I will put it. Yeah, I think I will put it low B. I think that's fine, actually. Yeah. It's also like the new speedrun map, but unlike Sabotage Lockdown, it feels way more skillful as well. Like, it feels incredibly more skillful. I'm thinking to even up it. Maybe above Crush, maybe. Yeah. That is good, maybe. But yeah, the final segment of this, like on higher difficulties, where there's like 6 enemies or so, is really, really cool and really, really nice, in my opinion. And elevates this quite a bit. Poison Cattle. Oh my god. People are gonna shoot me. This trial has a lot of problems, unironically. Most of the map is not really utilized that well, because all the poison is in Chemco. And there's a good chance, for example, you can completely skip the shipyard, for example, for the most part. Unless you're playing on countdown or whatever, then you have to utilize all the extenders probably. That being said, there's a lot of good about this map as well. The chemical area actually unlike poison medicine, actually feels threatening enough that you have to quit out or use hiding spots effectively. That is something that is missing from poison medicine, and I think that is good. I also like the gimmick with the one-way lever, that you can use the lever as a shortcut to the train station itself, but you can't use it the other way around. I think that is really cool as a gimmick. I think this map is also really merciless, by the way, if you get blocked doors, so that is rough. But the map has a lot of enemies. It has like big guy patrolling casino and Screamer there, small guy patrolling Chemco, and I think small guy and Screamer in the shipyard, and small guy also right in front of the casino as well. So there is a lot of enemies there, but the main reason why this is S for me is the train station itself, and you guys know why. Because Franco can live up his full potential. The train station is completely lit up. He has a gun, and if he sees you, he's gonna shoot you. And this, for no loadout, no damage thing, is the most intense shit ever, and the most intense shit in the game. I've been asking a lot ever since they nerfed the Screamer. That was actually the first video I ever talked about, like, balance and, my enjoyment in Trials and whatnot. That was like the very first video, and that was talking about the Screamers as well, that when they nerfed the Screamers, it kinda took away something, because now people could rush through Trials like headless chickens. And this segment embodies what I kinda wanna see more. I know people hate that, but that kinda embodies what I want to see more in Trials. Segments like these where you have to be careful. You're not forced to be entirely stealthy crouching everywhere, but you have to be careful and you get punished when you're being reckless. And that is nice. That's what I want to see more of, and I mean, we will probably see more of that with, MK challenges for like the dogs or any future Franco environment. So yeah. Like, the reason it's so high, even though the map, I acknowledge that the map has a bunch of problems, like the objectives being more or less on like 30% of the map, more or less, is a bit ugly, but for me it has to go in S simply because of the train segment, because that's probably my favorite segment in the game right now, if I had to nail it down to one. It's probably that one. Especially the tension if you wanna go without taking damage and you have a limited or no loadout. It's like chef's kiss for me personally. Empty Vault. Oh my god, we are almost done. Empty Vault is probably A somewhere, probably. Like, it's fine. I like the decoding you do on this map. With, you know, the symbols or whatnot. Especially if you have the capabilities to do to memorize numbers, which normally I don't, but I can cheat with Twitch chat. I find it enjoyable to do the decoding thing. The environment, Franco also spawning every once in a while can be incredibly threatening, obviously, because he's gonna shoot you if he sees you, but it's not oppressive in any means. You have the small guy and the screamer in train yard, you have a big guy and screamer in shipyard, you have small guy in Chemco, and you have big guy and screamer in the casino itself. Like, I think this is like fairly balanced in my opinion on higher difficulties. It is actually really threatening to get the loot if you don't have heavy training and you're doing this in escalation. It's actually threatening, like for Franco there. Like, the escape can actually be incredibly intense. This is also the first MK challenge that has 2 objectives, which is really interesting. Even though the second objective is really short, but still. And yeah, I think this is just fine, I would say. This is just fine. Comfortably around A. I enjoy it. It's not like the most top tier shit ever, but I enjoy it. I think it's pretty good. And now to the final one, eliminate the past. I'm gonna say it, chat. This one is tough to rank, in my opinion. It is among the best thing we have seen yet in this game yet. I'm gonna put it here now, because I don't know where to place it in A. Because it's so unique with you have a time limit, but once the time is up, it decides how bad your exit is. It's such a good mechanic. However, we've seen the exact same map a billion times. If you are a long-time Trials player especially, you've done Autopsy and Lockdown so many times, so you might be sick of that map. The mechanic is also literally straight up copy from the mansion tutorial, so it's not really that engaging either. So it's recycle upon recycle, but they made such a unique concept with that recycling, which is really cool. Also, it gets bonus points as well, because similar to Teach, X-Ray can hardcore carry you in this. If you wanna go for all the document things, X-Ray can hardcore carry you in this, which is also really cool. And yeah, you have blind guy in A, just like cancel Autopsy. You have blind guy in A, big guy in B, and actually you have small guy in B and big guy in C. Some screamers here and there. And you can, if you get difficulty 9, you can have up to 15 enemies or something like that. It is absolutely nuts. And for that concept alone, I should put it in S, but I don't think if I'm comfortable in that, because everything that is on this map has been like reused. Like, the map is the exact same as Cancel Autopsy, and you know, has the gimmick of Sabotage Lockdown escape, technically. And the mechanic has also been used a bunch, so I don't know. It is incredibly highly replayable. It is really fun to go for perfect game, but it's also incredibly fun for highest difficulty escape. Difficulty 9 isn't hard enough in my honest opinion. I don't know about that. I think difficulty 9 is fine. I think difficulty 9 is fine. I don't think that's the deal breaker of this. Is it weird that I had more trouble with this on standard than I did intensive? That is weird. Because you had less enemies done. I'm struggling, chat. Is this S tier or is that A? Because either way, it would probably be A above or S below, probably. But I don't know if I'm comfortable putting it in S. I don't think I am. I think it's like the highest of A, but because of what we've seen before, I don't think I can put it in S. I don't think I can. As good as this mechanic is. Like, I love this mechanic. Like, when we did the challenge recently, like, we recently did the challenge, like, the difficulty 9. The difficulty 9, no stamina, whatever thing. That was such a good challenge, and it felt so good. But at the same time, we've seen all of this before. And again, you have to commend it. You have to commend it. They did so much with so little. You have to commend it. And that's the reason why it's an A. But I don't think it's enough for S. And I think that's it. I think that's my list. There might be some things that I would need to get more thought into. Like, put more thought into this. With some of this shit. Unironically, potentially. So... But I think that's a good list. Like a good, decent list. Like some placements are variable. Like this is not the most accurate thing ever, but I'm comfortable with this list, I think.